everyone, and welcome to Books in the World. I am Madeline Mealy Holt, and I am your host today. I'm the Vice President of the Cape Cod Writers Center, and Books in the World is a production that the Cape Cod Writers Center started over 40 years ago, and the Writers Center is a Cape Cod tradition that has been bringing authors together for seminars and for meeting each other and general networking for a long time. So today we are visiting with Joanne C. Parsons. Hello, Joanne. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Joanne is a Harwich, Cape Cod author who started writing a few years ago, and her first two books are Kitchen Canary and Through the Open Door, which are historical novels about the Irish immigration in the 1800s, the 1850s or so. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, and you have done a good job with those and won some historical writing prizes for first novelists. But today we're going to deal with your second book, which is called Predator in the House. And it's about a very serious subject, child trafficking and child abuse, with a very noir mystery thriller twist to it. So you take a very difficult subject and deal with it in your own special way with your own creativity. So tell us a little bit about this book, and then we'll get right into it.
Well, it's a crime mystery novel. It's about a dark subject, child sex trafficking or child abuse. And so knowing I or other people probably wouldn't want to read a sad, dark story about child trafficking, I decided to write a story about a rogue Boston detective who took matters into his own hands, but I have a light approach, and you've read it, so you know there's some humor in it, in particularly between he and his wife, sort of that, you know, the give and take back and forth between he and his wife. And the book follows him in as he takes matters into his own hands for his own reasons, but ultimately spends the end of his life trying to find a child who was kidnapped and trafficked.
So why did you decide to write a book about this subject, Joanne?
I worked in healthcare my whole career, and there were times that we received a lot of education, especially was really pointed towards nurses, emergency room nurses, but and no matter what area we were in healthcare, we all attended. And one session I attended was an international group who saved children who were trafficked, presented, and it was so profoundly affected me at the time. And I had children and a job and a house and a husband, and I couldn't pack up and go and help them as I wanted to, but I decided that I would do something to raise awareness of child trafficking. And so now that I'm retired and I'm able to write books, I wrote the book for that reason, to help people who read it recognize the signs of child trafficking and how to report and how to intervene.
Well, with that very serious goal and background, you came up with a very odd character. Excuse me, but he was odd. He's odd. Do you love him?
I liked him.
You like him?
Yeah.
Your readers like him?
I think so. I think they have the same conflict that you have or I have, is that he's doing bad things, but for a good reason. In his mind, it's for a good reason.
Yeah. So how did you decide to take a kind of noir mystery thriller approach to this?
Actually, my husband, who's always helpful talking things through with me, he and I were driving to Florida, and we were trying to come up with a vehicle in a book that we could bring awareness, but also would be interesting to read. You want to write a good book. And we thought about having a married couple who killed sex offenders for their own reasons. And as we talk, as everything evolves, I decided that the main character would be a sex crimes detective from Boston, who, again, because he held himself responsible when a missing child was killed, decided to take matters into his own hands. So it was a long discussion on the way to Florida, and the whole idea kind of evolved to have the primary character be the one who took matters into his own hands, but we still have him in a dysfunctional marriage. And as you know, his wife, for her other reasons, and she's much darker than he is, decides to get in on the act.
Yeah, so it must be difficult writing about such a person. And you and I had a little bit of a conversation about other TV shows, or whether this idea of a kind of a morally ambiguous person is a popular theme these days. And go through a few of those influences that you had in your mind.
I don't think I was influenced by Dexter. For people who have watched it, he's a crime scene analyst, and he, behind the scenes, he goes after people who hurt other people, and in a very bloody way, ends their lives. So when I would tell people the theme of this book, they would say, "Oh, like Dexter." So I guess you could compare it to Dexter in that Carl, again, does what he thinks is a good thing, eliminating people who hurt children. So he thinks the bad thing that he does is for a good reason. So, and there are other stories of, as we were talking, there are other stories about people who work for the CIA or for the Russian KBG, and for their cause, they kill people.
Yeah,
on TV.
On TV, yeah, it is a theme. So how did you learn so much about trafficking and how a police person might go about tracking down the sex traffickers?
I research a lot, and at some points I said to my husband, I hope the FBI doesn't have me on a list, because I was on the internet so much, asking about how do you make a date with a child, and learning more about Tor, which is the dark web, where originally it was a place for people to be whistleblowers, and it's become deeper and darker, and it can be a place for child trafficking and lots of other not nice things. Mostly research, mostly reading online. Some of the examples, as the detectives go about their business and answer calls, as Boston detectives, we have different scenarios of kids who have been trafficked or abused or lured through the internet. And some of those were either life experiences or stories I've heard from people, or composites of stories I heard from people. One of the things I did before I left work, again, because I had this interest, is attend an all-day seminar offered by the Boston Police about how kids are being lured from low-income housing, because they're so vulnerable in terms of neediness. They may have absentee parents, certainly poverty. And so I learned a lot there, and there were some cases that they talked about that, again, I sort of incorporated a lot of what I knew, plus researching the web.
You did. You went from one episode to another, different kinds of child abuse and child molestation. I was affected by the comments about children who are lonely, and they're looking for affection, and they get it from these predators.
That's right. That's right. They're rehearsed experts. I was reading recently. I think they were arrested, there was a whole team, and each person on the team had a role. One would be the initial contact with the child over a game or the internet, and the other one had another expertise in terms of luring the child, and then another one would meet them. So there was this whole team who are highly expert. And as much as like my 13-year-old grandchild thinks he knows everything, these people know so much. They're experts at how to lure a child, how to fool a child.
Wow. Did you actually become a name on the dark web? Did you become a character the way your character did?
No, I didn't.
No.
I think I stopped short at downloading Tor because I knew I'd be on a list somewhere. So I didn't do that. So far, we haven't been rated, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, you did bring in the very current subject of DNA tracing. I watch enough television, so I watch Finding Your Roots, totally clean, which is the Henry Louis Gates show about ancestry background. But you got right into that. For anybody who really doesn't know what I'm talking about, can you sum that up in a couple of sentences? About
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
In this case, they had DNA from several of the crime. Well, as we said, Carl kind of gets on the high road pretty quickly, but it's his wife who has a dark past that gets more involved in killing, and she left some of her DNA at several of the crime scenes. But since she had never been convicted of a crime, her DNA wasn't on CODIS, the DNA database. But the intern at the police station, who I named after my oldest grandson, ran looked for crimes committed with the same weapon she used that were unsolved, and then got the DNA from that crime scene and compared it with hers, so they knew it was the same person.
Okay, I just realized that we kind of did a spoiler, but
oops.
We did. We did a spoiler, but it's not a terrible spoiler. I think we're holding back on some of the real color that you got into the book with the character of Shirley and Carl, which makes it a lot of fun to read. And you have quite a few comments on Amazon talking about the book being a page turner, and you did create some good characters there. And somebody is waiting for the movie, and it certainly does make you think about the movie and what it might be like,
Well, it's a very current topic with Epstein and all. It's a very current topic. And again, I named it Predator in the House because middle class and upper class, as well as the poor kids, are on their computers, and they're inviting the predator into the house. No matter what socioeconomic background you're from, you're still vulnerable to being lured. It's just not the runaway kid anymore.
Yeah. Well, I know that you took this departure to help inform people, and you did offer quite an extensive list of organizations in the book and further contacts. And for anybody who has an interest in this subject or need for the information, they will find it very useful. But back to your main subject interests, I did ask you whether you were going to write more about this, and you, I think, are going on the historical fiction. Can you say a few things about what you're up to next, please?
Well, I have a delicious historical fiction manuscript that's being beta read right now. And again, my husband and I, after the tornado, we were passing a cemetery, and we thought, what if we wrote a book about after a tornado and the gravestones were disrupted, and the person came back and went to the house on the Cape that they lived in the 1800s. So again, it evolved. It's not about that, but it is about a modern day woman who inherits a house on the Cape, and through a series of diaries and other research, learns about her relatives and and her life kind of, although she doesn't think she could possibly parallel their lives because they were a little shady. Her life does begin to parallel theirs. So it's a good book. I'm excited about it.
I bet. I can heartily recommend Kitchen Canary. I really enjoyed it, and I've talked about it a number of times with people who don't know too much about the Irish history. They know that people came over during the potato famine, but they really, it's a very interesting story, and I urge people to read it. We should probably be wrapping up in a minute or so, and I want to encourage people to take a look at your books and really, before we totally sign off, I really enjoy listening to you go through learning about the writing process. Since I know you from your first book, and you have progressed, and you have all sorts of little things that happen in Predator in the house about the wife wanting to be a writer. So I'm assuming you're enjoying your newfound career.
A lot of the book, obviously, I think all writers probably base some of their book on real life experiences, and so that's it. That's in Predator, about being a wannabe writer. But it gave me a chance to be humorous, to try to keep the book light. No, as we talked, it's kind of, I didn't imagine during my work career that I had the creativity to write. And as I mentioned to someone the other day, I think it's because when you stop working and you stop being consumed by your job, and the kids leave, your mind opens up, and there's more possibility for you when your mind opens up. And that's kind of what happened to me. I've become very, very creative writer, and I love it.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much for spending some time today. And I urge everyone to take a look at Predator in the House, Kitchen Canary, and Through the Open Door. Find them in your libraries, or ask for them in your libraries, or order them wherever you order books online. And Joanne, once again, thank you for joining us on Books in the World. Your website is joannecparsons.com, correct? And your Facebook,
yes.
You have a Facebook address?
Cape Cod Writer. Cape Cod Writer.
Cape Cod Writer is what you look for in Facebook.
Right, on Facebook.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Once again, everybody, enjoy Joanne's new book. Goodbye for now.